We're joined now by Michael Schmidt on the January 6th committee. He writes that their goal is not just to hold hearings and write a report. They are hoping that their work will lead to criminal prosecutions. The investigation is, quote, borrowing techniques from federal prosecutions, employing aggressive tactics typically used against mobsters and terrorists as it seeks to break through stonewalling from former President Trump and his allies and develop evidence that could prompt a criminal case. The committee, which has no authority to pursue criminal charges, is using what powers it has in expansive ways in hopes of pressuring the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to use the Justice Department to investigate and prosecute them. Michael, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And your reporting tonight gets to a question that I think is on every viewer's mind. What can this committee do given the running out the clock and the stonewalling that it continues to get from some people around the Trump orbit? And what your reporting describes is very much what I'm used to as a business journalist when you see the government go after a company where they start and they just move their way up and they figure out ways to get to central characters, even if the central characters won't participate.
I think that's right. The committee has done, it's taken an aggressive stance for several reasons. One of them is that a lot of the attempts to hold Donald Trump accountable, whether it was the Mueller investigation, the 2 impeachments, the other congressional investigations that have gone on, those all, while they did political damage to Trump and he ultimately lost the election, Donald Trump still looms and has not changed his behavior and continues to push his brand of Trumpism down into the country in ways that really concerns Democrats and anti-Trump Republicans. So they're taking the most aggressive stance that we've seen in any recent congressional investigation and going out and getting phone records that's sweeping up personal data of a lot of different people. And they're using link analysis, a tool that the FBI used in the years after the September 11th attacks to identify terrorist networks to see who was talking to who. They've looked at the org chart of the White House and of who was around the president. And they've said, okay, well, if Mark Meadows isn't going to talk to us, and if this other senior official is going to talk to us, who were the aides that were right underneath them? And who were the aides underneath them? And what did they know? Because they noticed when they went down the ladder, in the same way that you go down the ladder if you were looking at a mob organization, those people can be more vulnerable. They may be less loyal to the person at the top. Certainly, the younger you are, the less money you have to hire a high-end, white-collar criminal defense lawyer to defend you and to try and stop the committee from getting your phone records or stop the committee from questioning you. So the committee is doing this, to your point, to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th and everything in the lead up to it, but also because they are trying to come up with as much damning evidence as possible to pressure Merrick Garland. They see this as their best opportunity to try and get the Justice Department to do something. Garland has given no indication, there's been no public indication that he's investigating Trump or that the investigation of January 6th is headed in that direction. And what the January 6th committee, if it could have its way, it would develop as much damning information as possible and be able to tie it in a good faith argument to the criminal code and say to the Justice Department, okay, we went out and did this investigation. Here is what we found. These are the criminal laws that we think have been violated, and you should do something. And they would probably make something like that public. And that would, at the very least, I think, force the Justice Department to at least publicly address the question of what they're doing in regards to Donald Trump. Now, Merrick Garland has shown immense independence in his short period of time as Attorney General. And he may just sort of try and ignore it, but the Democratic Party is being pushed. The Democratic leaders on the Hill are being pushed by their base, which wants Trump held accountable. And at the center of this is Liz Cheney, who wants to use the most aggressive techniques possible. She is considered on the committee to be the most aggressive member. She says we are going to get criticized no matter what we do. They're going to come after us no matter what we do, and they're not going to cooperate no matter what we do. So we have to use every tool possible. And that is why the January 6th investigation looks different than many, many, many other investigations that we've seen come out of Congress.
So there's great reporting that you've got today, but there's also one big asterisk in which you say the committee's aggressive approach carries with it another obvious risk that it could fail to turn up compelling new information about Mr. Trump's efforts to hold on to power after his defeat or to make a persuasive case for a Justice Department prosecution. After all, Mr. Trump survived years of scrutiny by the special counsel in the Russia investigation, Robert S. Mueller III, and 2 impeachments. Despite a swirl of new investigations since he left office, the former president remains the dominant force in Republican politics. I mean, in fairness, we are learning new things that we didn't know during the impeachment. What's the point here? That we're not learning new things that fundamentally change anyone's thinking about what happened? We just have more details about what we already know.
Well, in many ways, I think January 6th may be one of the most important historical events, certainly to happen in my lifetime, that I've witnessed. In other ways, and because of that, we need to learn as much as we can about it. How did it happen? Who was behind it? Who were the intellectual people coming up with the underpinnings of it, the plans of it? Who was executing things? How did this all happen? How did thousands of people end up on the steps of the Capitol in a violent attack that led to deaths and to the interruption of one of the most sacred parts of our democracy? On the other hand, what else do you need to know about January 6th to change your mind about what happened? Donald Trump said everything out loud.
Right. He
still defends what he did. He is as open about it as possible. So there are two sort of like competing issues here. And look, we are going to get to the bottom as much of it as possible. It is a highly important event. I think the committee runs into difficulty when the report comes out, because they have made a lot of news. They put subpoenas out. They are the ones that put the subpoenas out every week, generating the stories about the people that they want to question and get documents for. And all of that has a beat to it, a momentum to it, that shows that this investigation is moving forward. Now, when that report comes out and when they're done, where will that momentum have left the committee? Will the committee have a new narrative, an entirely new appendage of the efforts to overturn the election that change the way that we look at January 6th? Or will it just be an evidence-based version of media and book accounts of it? We don't know, but the expectations are high because the committee has put so much time and effort into this and has generated so much news. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up. What do they know that we don't know?